Hello. So today I'm going to be talking about Haruki Murakami's novel Norwegian Wood. Now, I like to consider myself fairly well read, but I have never ever read any of Murakami's work. Not a single page. So I thought, you know what, I better correct this. I should give myself a little deep dive on Murakami. So I decided to pick out 3 books. So I wanted to kind of get an essence of his work. So I decided to go for Norwegian Wood, which is apparently the most straightforward of all of the works that he's written. There's no kind of like magical realism, no surrealism, no talking cats. Yes, I have heard about Murakami, bingo. So it's quite straightforward, so I thought I'd go for that. I am listening on audiobook to 1Q84, which was kind of an epic of his. It's like 3 books in one, 1,200 pages. I thought, cool, I'll go for a bit of an epic and see how that works out. And then I thought I would go for this book, Kafka on the Shore, which is his one, apparently the more heavier surrealist ones. I think this and Wind Up Bird Chronicle are the 2 like very wacky, weird ones out there. So I thought, yeah, super weird one, straightforward one, and an epic one. So I decided to start 2 at the same time. So I'm listening to 1Q84 on audiobook and I gave this a read. It's around just under 400 pages. It's not too hefty. Took me about 3 days to read whilst doing other bits and bobs. And it's a fairly straightforward read. But let's first talk about what this book is about. The book mainly focuses on, I would say, 3 characters. We have Toru, he is our protagonist, he is who we are following through the book, and the entire book is written in the first person, so we're seeing the world as he sees the world. Naoko, who is a friend from before his college days, she was dating his best friend Kazuki. Now, I don't consider this a spoiler because I definitely believe it happens very early on or is in the blurb, but Kazuki has killed himself. And the loss and grief over losing their best friend, both Naoko and Toru, we start there in the kind of height of their grief as they're just sort of strengthening their friendship together after this incident. We then follow Toru to university, where we get great detail about the living conditions, university at that time, and I believe it's around 1969, the late 60s, in which the majority of this novel is based. I think really it spans only about 3 years, from the age of 18 to about 20, 21, something like that. And that's about it. Really, we just follow Toru on his experiences and his relationships. Now, he has a very complicated relationship with Naoko, who he loves very much, and the passion and drive and love that he has for her increases as the book goes on. However, Naoko is extremely unwell. Her mental health is not in a good place, and she ends up having to sort of go away. And it's about him dealing with her condition and dealing with the grief that he has for both losing his friend, but the grief that he has for not being able to be with Naoko. And then we have an introduction of a 3rd character, Midori. Midori, I'm probably butchering these names, Midori. And she's kind of like the 3rd sort of, in this love triangle we've got going on between Toru, Naoko, and Midori. And yeah, it's all based around how brilliant Toru is. And I think that's it. I'm not going to go into too many more details. It's got a very Catcher in the Rye kind of vibe, in which we're just sort of following Toru, and he doesn't really care about anything. He's really laid back, and that not caring seems to make him irresistible to women. He seems to be really great in bed, people seem to sleep with him and then just fall in love with him, and it's, he's got something going on. And that thing seems to be, he really doesn't care, and he is very, very blunt in the way that he looks at the world, and he's extremely honest. And everyone around him seems to love him for that. I'm going to say right now, I didn't hate this book. I thought it was all right. In parts it was good, in parts I thought it was a bit abhorrent. It's a very, very erotic novel, and I have no issue with erotic novels, but I do have issue with someone who clearly can't write women. Just Bizarre. I don't know. I feel like if I had read this when I was between the ages of 16 and 18, I would have seen no issue in any of what's mentioned in this. It probably would have become a favourite of mine, and I probably would get very defensive over people who sort of besmirched it or badmouthed it. But what reading it now in my late 30s, I kind of, yeah, I just fucking, I mean, and I'm also listening to 1Q84, which is even worse than this. My God. You cannot escape the male gaze in this. You cannot escape the misogyny. You cannot escape that all the female characters seem to be put there more or less for the protagonist's needs in that sense. Now, here's the thing. I'm not saying right now that the female characters aren't fairly well-rounded. Most of the lead characters in this, and some of the side characters, I actually thought were really well coloured. You know, we got a rich history of their social standing, their history, their past, why they act the way they do. I actually felt like they weren't kind of, you know, one-dimensional in that sense. I really got yeah, it's just really well rounded. I really knew each character. The thing that just I didn't like was just the descriptions of women's bodies, and it just all felt a bit, I don't know, there's a way to write sex in a novel, and this is not the way. It just was a little bit cringy. There was elements of it that I was a bit like, okay, that's all right, I'm with you there, and then there'll be like a line of dialogue. Now, I haven't gone through it with a fine-tooth comb and written these things out, but there will be moments where I'm like, I can accept this as a scene. I can accept this as a sexual moment that's taking place. I can accept this as a desire that a young man might have. Okay, I'm with you. I'm on board. But then there would just be one line of dialogue, and I don't know if it's something in the translation, but I'd read it and I'd go, oh, why? Why say that? And I think Murakami does a lot of good work in this book. I think the writing style is simple, but my God, is it super smooth. I don't know, you can just really settle into the style of it. I kind of got on a proper groove with this novel, so I can see why it's fairly popular. And I really enjoyed investing in all the characters, and I really enjoyed the kind of the trickiness of the relationships at play. It was just the misogyny, the male gaze of Murakami. I mean, if I wasn't reading 1Q84 at the same time, I might not be being as harsh on this as I am, but I just don't think this is an author who understands women at all. At all. I just don't feel like women are as concerned with their breasts as Murakami would want us to believe. They are not. Now, I'm sure women may have moments as men do where we look at our bodies and go, I wish that was better or tighter or looked different and blah, 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 blah. We all have these things. But I don't spend every single second. And obviously, you know, when we are spending time with these characters, this is all we're getting. So to constantly get moments of characters talking about their breast size, yeah, I don't know. I just didn't like that aspect of it. So yeah, as all my reviews are so rambly, I think this novel does, however, have a lot to offer. I got really lost into it. It had a real kind of Catcher in the Rye vibe. I really enjoyed seeing the world through Toru's eyes. I really liked how laid back he was, because it gave all of his encounters a kind of, it allows them to share their stories in which he can make sharp, blunt judgments on them, and for me that really worked with kind of as we were following his character through. I felt it like it gave a really good sense of the Japanese university system at that time. It gave me a really nice idea of Tokyo at that time, and the culture and the kind of music that was being listened to, and the restaurants and the food, and all these things were really richly developed, which really painted and created a world for me. And all these are big ticks. Tick, 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 tick. Well done, Murakami. You know, bravo. But yeah, it does get a little hard to get past some of the weaknesses in the writing of female characters and the sex scenes in general. I'm going to leave that there, or else I'm just going to keep rambling. But would I give this star rating wise? What would I give this? I don't know. 2.5, 3 stars. I thought this was a good book, not a great book. Does it live up to the hype? Not for me, at the age I am now, and who I am as a person now. But I can honestly say, if I read this as like a 16, 17, 18-year-old, I think my brain, my mind at that time would have really clung on to this book. I think I would have been excited by the sex in it, and excited by like the way it was written with that male gaze, because I hadn't really developed as a human at that point. I was quite a late developer mentally in that sense. So I think I would have latched onto this, and I think I would have been one of those people, if anyone sort of put it down, I would have been going, how dare you? But no, but not terrible at all. People who call this a complete piece of garbage, I think they're being a bit over the top, but I can absolutely understand why people may have issues with this book. Good. Not bad, not great, kind of middling. Glad I read it. Lovely. Well, that was incredibly rambly, but thank you very much for listening. So I will report back in quite some time, because it's quite slow going, on my next Murakami book, which is 1Q84. But I shall soon be starting Kafka on the Shore when I've got another book out of the way. So I'll let you know my kind of thoughts and feelings on this one. I've got a feeling I'm going to enjoy this a bit more than Norwegian Wood. I like things that are a little bit weirder, a little bit more surreal, and I feel like this might play into my wheelhouse a little bit more, but we'll find out. Anywho, if you have any thoughts and feelings on Murakami, on Norwegian Wood, let me know down in the comments below. I would love to discuss those things with you. But yeah, thanks very much for watching. Peace.